So, that government policies should reach to the lowest level of person, right? And then only, because every decision has different set of assumptions, and those assumptions must be known. When I say assumption, what I mean to say, approaches, different arguments, different logics, right? This must be known. Fine. So, what we have learned by now, that downward flow of communication takes place once there is some information or instructions which should reach to the lowest level of the people, lowest strata of the people. Fine. It may be policy, it may be on day-to-day basis. What happens? Your boss calls and he says, hey, today we have to do this, and by the end of the day, I must see that these assignments are done, right? So, what happened? Even on day-to-day basis, downward flow takes place, because he has been instructed by his boss that, see, this is the target for the day. Fine. So, downward communication takes place just because of what? The dissemination of information and instruction. Instructions are functionality based, method based. Information are policy based, right? Now, this was downward. And what about upward? You know what? Every organization, the lowest strata people are very important, because they are the one who directly interact with the customers, clients, and what and how the clients and customers are behaving, consumers are behaving, responding to the product and services. If they are not aware, then what would happen? Obviously, man, if they are not aware, then generally the new decisions, the new policies which should have been made will not be made. What happened with Kingfisher? What happened with Nokia? Man, 2000 decade, 2000 to 2010, if you talk about mobile phone, that is Nokia. There was a synonym, there was a substitute for mobile name is Nokia. But what happened after 2010? Nokia was nowhere in existence, just because of maybe the response in the competitive world. There were other mobile companies who came up with Android facility, and it was better, sophisticated, user friendly, and this right information may not have, I guess, may not have reached to the upper level people over here who could make the necessary changes, adopt the changes, and finally what happened is, that. Same was the case with Kingfisher. Kingfisher, everybody dreamt, every business tycoon dreamt of flying in Kingfisher, just because of its luxury, cozy environment and the facilities that they used to give. But what happened? It was at the verge of being sold. It got sold, right? And why it was done so? Just because, again, if I consider right information, if it doesn't reach the right person in the right time, then the right decisions are not made, and if the right decisions are not made in the right time, then obviously this kind of breakdown of corporate world system would take place. So, upward communication. Now, I created here to here. Why this diagonal communication takes place? There is no proper channel, there is no particular system, there is no particular method or pathway. Anyone in the organization can talk to anyone. This particular manager of general manager who is working under the general manager 4, why would he talk with the general manager 1? They are differently skilled, different set of mindset, different orientation. Why would he talk? Yes, he would talk. You know what? Human beings, full of emotion, full of fear. When I talk emotion, fear is one of the emotion, right? And what happened? Maybe this general manager 4, just because of lack of some skills, is trying to subside, he is trying to dominate, he is trying to harass that particular person, because he is creating a voice against him. And if he does so, he will be fired. He knows that he is the right man, he has the power, he may fire me. And if I get fired, then why would I create a voice against my boss, right? So this fear was decoded by the corporate world people. Then they came up with the concept, what? Complaint box. Whosoever can complain against anyone in an organization without writing down their names. Then what happened? This was observed, but still it was not effective. Then laterally what happened in intrapersonal communication, there is intranet in an organization, right, where you can mail anyone at any given point of time, and then the right information reaches the right person who is at the decision making end. So this particular person may share his ideas, his opinion, his views, his perception, his observation to the topmost person anywhere. This is one negative aspect I said. Maybe positive. He may be having some innovative ideas or creative idea related to this particular domain of general manager 1. He may share that. Because as I have already said in the last lecture, it is not necessary that all the good ideas will be the outcome of your brain. It may come up from any brain. So you should accept good ideas from any source, from any dimension, from any direction, right? So that was diagonal. What about the horizontal? Why would any manager 1 from general manager 1 would talk to general manager 4, manager 5? Or why would general manager 1, general manager 2, general manager 3, general manager 4 interact with each other? Just because of the specific problem solving ability. While you talk with people with same hierarchy people, then what happens? You share your experiences, you share your knowledge related to how you handle people, how you handle your department. And then what would happen? Maybe one of the people in that particular parallel hierarchy may not be that efficient, may be lacking somewhere, may not be equally competent in dealing with situations. And then what happens? Once he listens to the other hierarchy, same hierarchy people, he feels confident, and now he says, yes, I have to adopt this technique and apply the same one. A manager, general manager cannot ask suggestions generally, because just because of ego factor, everybody has ego, right? And he cannot ask to manager 1 or people working under him, hey, I'm not efficient, I'm not able to tackle this situation, would you please guide me what to do? There is an ego problem, and that's the reason why horizontal communication was supported and developed. Right? Fine. So this was all about flow of communication, because it is a system. Lots of teams are working, lots of groups are working, and how to coordinate, cooperate, and create complete a bonding between different teams and groups. Just not because of human emotion, but at the same time because of what? Same vision, same mission, same objective. All the people in the organization are working for, and the relation, they should be correlated to the objectives, and this could be only possible with free and flow of communication. Free and flow of communication. As I made it very clear, what quality and quantity of organization information floating in an organization decide how successful it is. Right? Fine. So quality and quantity. Hey, you know what? Nowadays customers switch from company to company. So trust building, branding, how a trust is built in the customers. Now with a multinational company, they come up with magazine, brochure, each and every information of organizations are shared with the customer. External communication, this is external. How the people from organization interact with the customers and clients. They share everything from shares, debentures, they share about all the machinery, they share about the profits. Why? Why is this happening? You know what? More you know about anybody, better trust is being generated. Same is the case. Why do you choose one particular person to be your friend? Just because you know more about him and you are comfortable that he is not going to cheat, he is not going to be fraud as far as you are concerned, right? Fine. So right, that was flow of communication in nutshell. And now we will be switching to the very important part. You know what? Barriers to communication. Where will barrier happen? Whatever by now I have discussed, by now, whether first lecture, second lecture, third lecture, this is the fourth lecture, everywhere all the concepts barrier can happen. But still let me categorize it under certain headings. Barriers could be interpersonal barriers, barriers could be intrapersonal barriers, barriers could be physical barriers, Barriers could be, extra personal barriers. Barriers could be organizational barriers. Everywhere can be a barrier. Now, one by one we will be discussing. Barriers related to language, how language creates a barrier. Suppose, a medical practitioner, a doctor, talking to one of the villager who is a patient. There was something wrong with medically he was not fit. So the patient, the villager, visited doctor, and the doctor suggested, hey, you go for a blood test. And within a day or two, there was a test, and the villager came down with the report and showed it to the doctor. Doctor went through the report of blood test, and he said, hey, your RBC counts are very less. You know what? The villager, the patient will be perplexed. Hey, my goodness, something is great wrong with me, because he doesn't know these technical terms. He doesn't know. He may be thinking that I am suffering with a very complex, uncurable disease. What we have learned from this particular thing? We have learned that you must not use those terms which are not known to the receiver end. Process of communication, right? There is a sender, there is a receiver, and in this particular story, who is the sender? Doctor. Who is the receiver? Villager. And the knowledge of the villager is not good. He is not a learned person. He is not medically sound person. He may not be knowing all the medical terms. And so, you should make it very clear that you use those terms which is known to him, and at the same time makes him comfortable, not tensed, right? Whether he dies or not, he will die of tension. Hey, there is a great problem with me, right? Now, this is one of the problem because of misuse of language. What about the others? Perception based. You might have definitely heard about a story where six blind people were left in front of an elephant. They were left at a different space. One was left in the front of tail, other was left in the front of leg, other was left in the front of ear, another was left in the front of trunk, and they were asked, what is there? What is the object in front of you? The one who was in front of the tail, he just touched it and observed it and said, hey, it seems it's a rope. The one who was in front of the body, he touched it and said it's a wall. The one who was in front of this legs, he touched it and said, hey, it's a tree. The one who was in front of the ear, he said, hey, it seems as if some fan is there. So, what I mean to say is assumption, right? I have already used it, assumption. Perceptions may be biased, You may not be able to conceptualize, visualize and conclude holistically, completely. So, you should be very clear while the communication process takes place. All the dimension of perception should be taken into account. If you are not taking all the accounts, then what would happen? The chances of your decision, the chances of your policies of getting failed are more. Right? That's the reason why now and then surveys are done in organization. They want to know more and more accurately, microscopically related to customers and clients. Right? Because you never know what is going on at the end, and if you perceive, if I take the liberty of using Hindi, which I should not, but yes, I would take, and what is that? दूर से देखा तो अंडे उबल रहे थे और पास आके देखा तो गंजे उछल रहे थे. What I meant to say is, there are times you get biased, right? There are times you are not able to perceive the reality and you start hallucinating. You create an illusion about the facts, and which may not be the fact, right? This is one of the problems. There are many problems. Once we select lots of channel, suppose, have you played the game, whispering game in the childhood? I used to play. We used to sit, all our friends used to sit in a circle, and one used to say a word in the ear of the other, and this used to get passed on to the end of the person. And once the end person was asked to say what was said to you, what happened? Ram was changed into Rahim. There was no correlation between what the first word was and what was the last word of being uttered. Right? So, same is the case in the organization. If you are trying to transmit an information or an instruction by using too many people or too many channels, then that get distorted just because of personal biasness, personal perception, which get included into it. Suppose if I say to my one of my students and say, hey, I won't be present on coming Monday, and all the assignment which I asked you to submit on Monday, you should submit it by Wednesday. And the student to whom I was narrating, he was not very focused, he was running under some kind of stress. So he listened but not completely. He went down to the class and he said, hey, sir won't be there on the Wednesday, and so all over assignment which was given to you, you should submit on Monday. What happened? He just changed a few dialogues and its interpretation and made it havoc, isn't it? So you have to make it again clear. So there are many problems as far as barriers of communications are concerned. Oh, what are the others one? Information overloaded. What happens while just because of lots of occasion, lots of celebration, lots of functions, regular classes are not able to run. Then what happens? Faculty is left with hardly 2 or 4 lectures and he has to complete the syllabus. Then what he does? He starts running, he starts rushing in the class, and he is not able to explain and describe sufficiently on the different concepts which he should have done, and then rapidly at an abstract level knowledge is thrown to you, and what happens? You are not able to correlate just because of being novice. You are not that expert as the faculty, right? And then what happens? You think that, hey, yes, I could understand, but it feels that there is something missing in me, right? So information overloaded means what? The suggestions are given that please make sure that you do not pass on too many information at the same time to a particular person. Make it one by one. Break down into different parts and sets and gradually disseminate so that the complete understanding and observe the information, and properly the response and reactions will take place. That is one of the. Second, as I have already mentioned, there are grey point. If you remember in the last lecture we were talking about grey point communication, right? Grey point communication, generally what happens? In grey point communication, there are different set of informal groups in an organization, right? And what happens? Suppose there are informal groups, 3 informal groups, one of 5 people, one of 2 people, one of 7 people. And suppose one of the member of the 5 people created some mistakes unknowingly, and there is a compact, and the 5 people group is a rivalry of the group of 7. Then how they would behave? They will always try to put him down and prove him wrong, or whatever possible means they would try, and then what would happen? What would happen? He would be fired or he would be punished or penalized, right? So what happens is, in group point communication, that is known as biased perception. Due to biased perception, they are my friends, they cannot be wrong, and whosoever is the enemy of my friends is my enemy. This superimposition of thought process ultimately leads to what happened? The proper flow of communication. There is a barrier. There is a barriers. A person is not able to understand, and the organization as a structure, organization as a system is not able to function. What generally happens in a group family or a joint family? Just because of certain biasness, they start fighting on menial issues, and gradually the family breaks down. Why has the concept of nuclear family come into existence? Nuclear family, hum do hamare do. Why this concept has come down? Just because of self-centeredness, selfishness. Same is the case in the organization. People just want to get benefit and allow benefit to reach those people who are closely associated, not to others. Fine, and this should be restricted, because I have already said team, complete all the organization, all the people in the organizations are a team, and if team is not having bonding, if the team is not having cooperation, coordination, then what would happen? Obviously, organization will be failing, organization will be not able to achieve, attain